Sneaker culture didn't die because people stopped caring about sneakers. It died because the biggest brand in the world accidentally killed it, and the data proves it. Right now, as you're watching this, Mizuno is the fastest growing sneaker brand on resale platforms, up 124%. Mizuno, the brand your gym teacher wore to parent-teacher conferences. And Nike. Nike is still trying to figure out what went wrong. Here's what this video is about. Nike made a decision in 2020 that erased tens of billions of dollars in market value, triggered a federal securities fraud lawsuit, handed its shelf space to every competitor it ever had, and in doing so, dismantled the very culture that made the brand untouchable for 4 decades. Most videos on this topic will tell you Nike went direct to consumer and it backfired. That's true, but that's the boring version. The real story is messier, more specific, and honestly, more shocking. Because this wasn't just a bad strategy call. According to a federal lawsuit, executives may have known it was failing and kept telling investors otherwise while quietly selling their own stock. I've gone through the shareholder filings, the StockX resale reports, the analyst notes, and the earnings call transcripts. By the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Nike broke sneaker culture, not in a vague, things changed way, but with the actual numbers, the actual names of the retailers they burned, and the specific moment the whole thing collapsed in a single day. And I'm going to save the most important detail for last, because it's the one thing that changes how you see this entire story. Let's start with the part that most people actually get wrong. Everyone frames this as a story about Nike chasing online sales and losing. But the real setup happened before any of that, back in 2020, when Nike's then new CEO, John Donahoe, announced something called the Consumer Direct Acceleration Strategy. The idea was straightforward. Cut out the middlemen, sell directly to customers through Nike's own app and website, collect all the margin, own all the data, and build a relationship with the consumer that no retailer could interrupt. It sounded clean. It sounded modern. It sounded like exactly what every business consultant in 2020 was telling every brand to do. Wedbush analysts later put it plainly. We think it's becoming clearer that the Consumer Direct Acceleration strategy was a mistake. Their argument was that the original pre-COVID Consumer Direct plan was actually doing fine. But by accelerating it in 2020, Nike focused too much on where they were selling and lost focus of what they were selling. That distinction matters more than it sounds, because when you're obsessed with the channel, you stop obsessing over the product. And for a brand built entirely on product desire, that's a slow death. But here's where it gets specific, and this is the detail almost no one mentions. Nike didn't just gradually shift toward direct sales. They restructured and reorganized their operations, acquired new digital capabilities, developed an omni-channel supply chain and direct retail network, and radically cut back on their long-standing wholesale distribution. That last part is the one that mattered most, because cutting back on wholesale is a polite way of saying they stopped sending shoes to the stores where most people actually buy shoes. And it wasn't vague. They cut specific, nameable companies. Nike halted product flow to Amazon, Zappos, Dillard's, and Urban Outfitters. They pulled back significantly from Foot Locker, which had been their closest US retail partner for years. Some traditional retailers responded by reducing their Nike assortments. At Macy's, for example, Nike's presence in women's and children's lines was pulled for a period. This wasn't a market correction. This was Nike manually clearing its own products off of shelves across the country. And here's the part that should have been obvious, but apparently wasn't. Those shelves didn't stay empty. Over the past decade, as Nike pulled away from long-standing partnerships with retailers to push their own sales channels, the broader sportswear industry was watching. Adidas, New Balance, Puma, they all moved into the space Nike vacated. Nike didn't lose to a better competitor. It handed its competitors the shelf space, the foot traffic, and the customer attention that it had spent decades earning. That's the part that stings. The rivals didn't outmaneuver Nike. Nike just stepped aside and let them in. Now, did any of this actually work on Nike's end? Did the DTC bet pay off? By fiscal 2023, Nike Direct accounted for almost 44% of the company's Nike brand revenue, and the goal was for it to reach 60% by 2025. They never got there. Fiscal year 2024 marked the first decline in Nike brand digital sales since 2015, with consecutive quarterly drops exceeding 20% in fiscal year 2025. So not only did they miss the target, they went backwards. The channel they bet everything on started shrinking right when it was supposed to be peaking. In fiscal Q4 2024, Nike Direct revenue dropped about 8% year over year, largely due to weaker digital results, while wholesale revenue in that same quarter rose about 5%. Read that again. The channel they abandoned was growing. The channel they built their entire future on was shrinking at the same time. And this brings us to something that's almost never talked about in the Nike conversation, the behavioral economics angle. An analyst at Wedbush made an observation that reframes this whole thing. Nike's fundamental miscalculation wasn't about distribution. It was about how their own customers actually shop. Millions of Nike buyers didn't go to Foot Locker just to buy Nikes. They went to compare. They wanted to pick up a Nike and an Adidas and a New Balance and decide in the moment. Nike assumed those customers would follow them to a dedicated Nike app. Most of them didn't. The lawsuit later argued that Nike was unable to protect itself from industry pressures once it dropped many of its wholesale partners, which is a legal way of saying the same thing. You can't pull people out of a multi-brand environment and expect them to become single-brand loyalists overnight. People don't work that way. Now, I want to talk about the sneaker culture side of this, because that's the part of the story that the business press mostly ignores, and it's the part that explains why this video is called what it's called. For about 15 years, Nike and Jordan brand were the engine of sneaker culture. The whole ecosystem, the drops, the lines, the resale market, the hype, it ran on scarcity. A shoe was worth something because you couldn't just walk into a store and buy it. The Air Jordan 1, the Dunk Low. These weren't just shoes, they were cultural objects, and their value came from the fact that most people couldn't get them. Then Nike did something that seems almost unbelievable in hindsight. They flooded their own market. Colorways like the Panda Dunk, which had been a legitimate grail, got restocked so many times that they became a mall staple. Nike was essentially printing money in the short term by satisfying demand, without realizing that satisfying demand is exactly what destroys the culture that creates demand in the first place. Scarcity is the product. The moment you remove scarcity, you're not selling the same thing anymore. StockX data confirms what sneakerheads felt in real time. The days of relying on one silhouette no longer drives heat across an entire brand. The Nike Dunk, which formerly reigned supreme, saw a dip in popularity with trades down 41% year over year. 41%. That's not a dip, that's a collapse. And it happened because Nike made the Dunk everywhere instead of nowhere. The sneaker resale market for Nike and Jordan has slowed, with market share dropping 11% and 12% respectively from 2023 to 2024. And here's the twist that most videos completely miss. Sneaker culture didn't die. it just moved. StockX data shows a diversified portfolio of brands locking in the top spots for year-over-year growth, including ASICS at plus 589%, Adidas at plus 88%, and Yeezy at plus 23%. The money, the energy, the cultural heat, it didn't evaporate. It relocated to brands that Nike had never considered real competition. StockX CEO Scott Cutler called this shift the most significant the platform has seen, not only in the history of the company, which debuted in 2016, but also in resale in the last decade. That's the CEO of the largest sneaker resale platform on earth, saying he has never seen anything like what just happened to Nike's cultural dominance. That's not a minor data point. That's the whole story. And speaking of things that happened fast, the financial collapse wasn't slow either. This is another thing the typical narrative gets wrong. People talk about Nike's decline like it was a gradual erosion over years. Parts of it were. But there was also a specific moment where everything broke at once. From November 2021, Nike's stock dropped from $177.51 to $83.10 by October 2024, wiping out billions of dollars in shareholder value. That's a 53% decline from peak to trough. And embedded in that slow slide was a single-day catastrophe. When Nike's June 2024 earnings call revealed the true scope of the damage, the stock dropped roughly 20% in one session. Not over a quarter, not over a year. One day, billions of dollars gone before the market closed. Now here's where this story goes from bad strategy to something much more serious. And this is the open loop I mentioned at the beginning, the detail that changes everything.